Welcome back to another episode of BestowCast, and we are still celebrating Yo-Jo June, even though it's the end of Yo-Jo July. What I had started a month ago was the overview. I don't want to really say review. Overview? I guess review. Maybe a review. Anyway, we started talking about the G.I. Joe films, which we had like G.I. Joe the movie, G.I. Joe Resolute, G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra, and then this one, which is G.I. Joe Retaliation, which came out in 2013. What I can recall back then is, and it still rings true now, is I remember not wanting to see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in a G.I. Joe movie because it would just be about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And it still rings true all the way up here. 10 years later, you pretty much have Dwayne kind of taking over roles and just being Dwayne. And it's, I don't know. I mean, he kind of falls in line with, like, I don't know, like Tom Cruise or Will Smith or a lot of those actors who don't really play roles. They just play themselves, and then they just get cast as themselves in the roles, and then they just be themselves. Will Smith always was irritating at one point because he was always the Fresh Prince no matter what role he played. And sometimes it worked out. Like Independence Day really worked out where, that Fresh Prince character was just fine. It just gets grating after a while when it's just like it's just the same character over and over and over again. And The Rock kind of falls in the same category here. I mean, matter of fact, we doubled down because we have Bruce Willis in this movie as well. And Bruce Willis is another one that just plays Bruce Willis. He's pretty much John McClane in everything. It's just that's his role. Interesting enough, as I saw a documentary or docudrama or docuseries, somebody had kind of looked into Dwayne Johnson, and they kind of made this mini documentary on YouTube's. If you get a chance, check it out. The reason why, like, he plays himself or he plays the same roles is he basically doesn't have the time. He makes like anywhere 4 to 6 movies a year, and he doesn't have time to study Shakespeare and be a Shakespearean actor and so on and so forth. I don't want to knock him too terribly bad. I mean, he is very a charming individual. What movies he is in, he does the role well. I know, like, ironically, when the movie Snake Eyes came out, and when Riley and I went to go see it, the projector broke, and they allowed us to go to another theater and watch something else. And our choice was Dwayne Johnson in The Jungle Cruise or Scarlett Johansson in Black Widow. And even though I'd seen Black Widow once before, we went and saw Black Widow because we didn't want to see Dwayne Johnson playing Dwayne Johnson. And a short time later, when it finally came out onto Disney Plus and streaming, I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll check this out. No big deal. And it's a good film. That's a good film. I mean, it's fine. It's Dwayne Johnson playing Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson somehow being a Spaniard in the Spanish Inquisition playing Dwayne Johnson. But sorry, spoilers if you haven't seen that. But it's fine. It's fine. I enjoy, like, the Fast and the Furious movies. I enjoy movies that he's in, but I don't really go out of my way to see things that he's in. And that brings us back to G.I. Joe Retaliation, which, like I said, even back then, it was just like, he's just going to take over the role and take over the movie. And sure enough, that's exactly what happens. And if memory serves me, we had Channing Tatum. I swear I can say that. Channing Tatum as Duke. And I think he was still kind of an up-and-coming star. Nobody knew who he was. So, of course, we nuked the Duke in order to make way for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to take over the series. And I think they came to regret it because I believe Magic Mike had come out shortly around that time. Because originally this film was supposed to come out in 2012. And you remember when 3D was the rage and everything had to be 3D. All of our movies had to be 3D. Even if they weren't shot in 3D, we had to make them 3D because that was how we made money. That's how the studios made money. And so this didn't come out in 2012 because they had to post-convert this movie into 3D because that was going to make big bucks then. And I guess during that time, during the conversion, it was when, like, I think Magic Mike had come out, and all of a sudden Channing Tatum became a very well-known name, a well-wanted actor. And here in this film, they nuked the Duke and got rid of him. It does continue from Rise of Cobra. I guess Rise of Cobra did just well enough that it got a sequel. But it very much, I don't know where it's like Rise of Cobra. I guess they try to make it real world, or try to kind of pull back a little bit than because G.I. Joe has a tendency to be over the top, especially if you're referencing like the cartoons. So they kind of tried to, I don't know, ground it in some way, I guess. Whereas this one, they let out a little, they let loose a little bit. And so we've got a continuation from Rise of Cobra, where we have Zartan as the President of the United States of America. And he somehow declares Joe's, the secret organization, as a threat. And he manages to eliminate all the Joes, all the friggin' Joes, all the whatever word I can use that won't get me flagged by YouTube, Joes, except for a handful of them. He didn't. He missed out on Roadblock. He missed out on. He missed out on Roadblock. He missed out on Flint. He missed out on. Is it Lady J that's in this one, or is that Scarlet? Hold, please.
Please hold the line.
Yeah, it's Lady J that's in this one. It kind of throws me off because she's kind of a redhead, or at least she's a redhead. She's wearing I think she's wearing a wig in one of the scenes, so it kind of throws me off that that she's more in line with Scarlet. But then again, I just recently watched some of the Deke episodes, and Lady J in those episodes is a redhead for some reason as well. It's basically Roadblock, Flint, and Lady J that survived the attack. Snake Eyes is elsewhere. He's training with the Hard Master with Jinx. So he and her, him and her, his and her, them and they survive the attack as well. But everybody else, including Duke, is now officially gone, and we set the status quo to be basically The Rock, a film that revolves around The Rock. Despite all that, it's actually not that bad of a film. Like I said, they redo Cobra Commander. We kind of finally get instead of this weird breathing apparatus that they gave him, they actually give him the mask. I don't know, like I think he puts on a mask at the end of Rise of Cobra, but I don't know if it's the same mask. But he ends up getting a mask. Storm Shadow breaks into the facility. He's for Storm Shadow is disguised as Snake Eyes, which is a wanted person as per the President of the United States of America, and he comes in disguise into the prison as Snake Eyes, and is put into jail. Now their jail is this underwater aquatic system, very. Again, this is G.I. Joe. Don't try to make sense out of G.I. Joe. It differs from Rise of Cobra because Destro and Cobra Commander are kind of in this like laser protected prison, where now they're in these underwater tanks. So Storm Shadow comes in and he's put in one of these tanks. He somehow fakes a cardiac arrest, of which they bring him out and give him CPR. There's no way that that can be administered or really flawed prison system. If your person that's in the prison is dying of cardiac arrest, even if they give a crap to even like resuscitate him, I don't. These guys are prisoners of war. I don't know. Again, I'm trying to make sense out of a G.I. Joe thing, but they bring him out. They realize that he was faking it. Sets Cobra Commander free. They both say F Destro. He can stay in the prison. I'm just going to leave him there, which fits the Cobra Commander mentality that him and Destro are kind of at odds. But Christopher Eccleston didn't return for Destro, so they didn't want to deal with that character. We get some stuff. We get some really nice stuff with Firefly. That role. It was pretty. I like the fact that they used the fireflies, little robotic drones as his explosives. So we get a nice appearance of Ray Stevenson as Firefly. R.I.P. Ray Stevenson. It's not Channing Tatum, but all right. So we get some like ninja things. We get some ninja scenes. We get Snake Eyes doing ninja shit, and we get Jinx doing ninja shit. They go to capture Storm Shadow, and they have to bring him back to the whatever's left. They can't really bring him back to HQ. It doesn't exist anymore. It's all gone. It's all gone. Everybody's, any of those characters that you liked from the first movie, too bad. They're gone. So we get Snake Eyes and Jinx doing ninja things, and we get this really awesome Himalayan scene where Snake Eyes and Jinx are doing ninja stuff to try to smuggle Storm Shadow back with them to, I guess, the U.S. Worth the price of admission right there. Just the ninja stuff is well worth the price of admission. Never really explained what happened to Storm Shadow, who supposedly had an ambiguous death in the first movie. But again, trying to make sense of a Snake Eyes, or not trying to make sense of a G.I. Joe franchise. It doesn't really need it. I mean, I'm okay with G.I. Joe borderline being Fast and Furious. Like, Fast and Furious knows what they are. G.I. Joe, we know that they're making more G.I. Joe movies in the future. Just, I don't know if it necessarily has to be way over the top, but it doesn't have to be grounded in reality either. Just have it be fun. And this was fun. Like, the ninja stuff was fun. You could tell that this was early rock career kind of stuff. Film studios actually have people on set that count the number of punches and how many times Dwayne falls on his back, because same amount of punches have to be thrown to either side, and Dwayne can't look like he can't look like a loser. He has to come out on top. So like if he's in a scene with like Jason Statham, who also can't look like a loser and also has to come out on top, well, they have to throw the same amount of punches. This is kind of an early thing where The Rock, he actually he gets his ass handed to him by Firefly. You don't see that in modern rock movies anymore. He is the all encompassing machismo. Insert analogy here. One of my disappointments with this film is Flint. Flint was actually one of my favorite characters from the cartoon, and of course a commanding officer. For some reason, Roadblock is the commanding officer from this point on. I mean, I guess logically it would make sense if Flint was a new recruit. If they're continuing this from Rise of Cobra, and Flint obviously wasn't in that film, so maybe he's a new recruit. So all right, fine. But Roadblock being the person in charge kind of downgrades Flint. That's kind of a little ding for me. I kind of would have wanted Flint to be large and in charge, or even Duke, but R.I.P. Duke. Going back to Duke, I don't know. Like I seem to recall them adding scenes back in after him becoming more popular, more famous from his other movie roles. That they do this thing, and I don't know if it existed before or that this is something that they added afterwards to try to capitalize on Channing Tatum a little bit more. But they established this kind of friendship between him and Roadblock, and and they're friends even down to the point where Duke is almost family. I guess it's supposed to be more of a shock when Duke dies. I don't know. It doesn't really. I don't know. Like, knowing that he dies, just seems hollow. It's like this plot point just seems hollow. Knowing that there's no real repercussion. There's no ties to this. I don't know how close. I mean, how close does this run to Rise of Cobra? Because you have Zartan becoming the president. Is he? It obviously can't be more than. It, depending on how long the president was president in Rise of Cobra, this can't be any more than 4 to 8 years. I mean, I guess it could be 8 years if he got reelected, but there was no mention of him getting reelected as president. So I don't know. Like a lot of this kind of like a lot of this just really falls short. Where it's like we got Roadblock, he's not seen in Rise of Cobra, and all of a sudden they're buddy buddy with Duke. You got Flint, who's I guess a new recruit and just kind of I don't know, not really being Flint. But I guess I go swinging back the other way at a high point is when we get to Bruce Willis as Joe Colton, the guy who formed G.I. Joe, and probably one of the better characters. I don't want to say better characters. Uh, he's kind of a, I don't know. How do I say? I don't know how to say this. Like he kind of provides. He doesn't really provide the balance. I want to say he provides the balance when it comes to Dwayne, like kind of taking over the movie, but Bruce Willis doesn't really take over the movie either. He's got like maybe one or two action scenes to show that he's a part of it, but for the most part, he's I guess an information broker. He's kind of like he pushes the plot along. He moves the plot forward. I mean, I like his role, but I would have liked to see more in his role. As far as the nostalgia bubble, I didn't see this in theater. I think I saw Rise of Cobra in theater, but I'm pretty sure I didn't see. Not that I didn't want to see it in theater, but I would just like again. I remember just the whole stink of Dwayne Johnson being in it, and it's just like Dwayne Johnson just plays Dwayne Johnson. So it kind of didn't really care too much to see it in theaters, and I don't recall it even being in the theaters that long. I do recall when I saw it was when it finally did come out in DVD, when it came out in physical media. I had bought the physical media at the time and had watched it. Honestly, I actually like enjoy the movie. I actually like this movie, despite despite it being a vehicle for Dwayne Johnson, and despite like some of my other gripes. It's a pretty decent GI Joe movie, and I think it's a better GI Joe movie than Rise of Cobra. It was, again, they kind of embrace the not so seriousness, where we got Cobra sending up satellites that send out rods to do more destruction than a nuclear bomb and none of the fallout, which must have been a thing back then because I remember getting what was it, Call of Duty Ghosts. I had found it it was like a brand new release, and I had found it in the Goodwill, and I picked it up, and I remember picking it up for like $5 or $10 when the new release was like, it was like a $60 game. And I remember the whole plot line of that being them dropping these rods from satellites so that they could do damage without the nuclear fallout. That must have been a thing back then. I don't know when Retaliation came out in conjunction to Call of Duty Ghost. Ghost might have came out later, but yeah, it's just kind of weird that was the thing, that was the military that was in the zeitgeist at that time. But they bomb they bomb the spoilers, but they bomb London. They drop one of these things on London. We got to raise the stakes. We bombed the Eiffel Tower in the first one and got labeled terrorists because of not really being terrorists. Well, I guess it's a terrorist act, but I don't know. This is a little bit more extreme, and this kind of falls in line with how like the cartoon went, even though they don't really like blow up national, not national landmarks, but just landmarks, worldwide recognizable landmarks. Usually, like they'll demonstrate they'll demonstrate the weather dominator or the mass device or whatever the weapon of choice is. They'll usually demonstrated on an empty city or an empty town, someplace in Springfield, and just to show their might. So it's kind of bold when they do these in the movies. With the Eiffel Tower, which is it's kind of minimalistic, but it's kind of like each movie has to up the stakes a little bit more. So when you're upping the stakes, they use the nanomites on the Eiffel Tower. What's the next step? And it's like, well, now they bombed London. So if there was a third one, I don't know how they would have upped the stakes from the third one. What do you do after the third one? What do you do after the second one? What do you do after you obliterate London? Um, I kind of like the show of power. I kind of like like I said, there's a little bit over the top. We've got Zartan as the president, being cocky as hell. We got a storyline where like Storm Shadow kind of just joins the Joes because he realizes that Zartan is the one that kind of killed his master when they were a child, not Snake Eyes, and so we got a kind of this plot where he wants revenge against Zartan, even though Zartan's the president, and he was all for it in that last movie. He didn't seem against it. Now he's against it somehow, some reason. We kind of have this backstory going on with Storm Shadow and Zartan, and it's wild. It's wild that Zartan's, because at least in Rise of Cobra moving forward, we have these nanomites that can change your appearance, so it kind of plays into the whole G.I. Joe disguise kind of thing that they used to do. In the comics and the cartoons, they always used rubber masks, and it's kind of wild to know that Zartan raised Storm Shadow while wearing a rubber mask, and Storm Shadow never questioned it one bit. It never was a problem. Again, I don't want to overanalyze a GI Joe film, but it's kind of wild that all these years went by and it was just Zartan in this rubber mask. So I guess it's time to grade it. We brought back the whole classic one, ranking our movies from 1 to cats, 1 being the highest, 3 being the lowest, and then cats just being the bottom rung. To this date, just so you guys know, I still have not watched the Cats computer animated movie, nor do I intend to. That is always going to be the bottom line for me. So just to review, at the number 1 spot we have G.I. Joe Resolute. At the number 2 spot we have Nothing. And at the number 3 spot we have G.I. Joe the Movie and G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra. So where would I rank G.I. Joe Resolution? Is that the right thing? No, Retaliation. I knew I was going to get it. There's too many R's. There's too many R's in this. There's Renegades, Retaliation, and Resolute. This is Retaliation, guys. This is what I'm talking. Hopefully I said that right at the top of the podcast. Anyway, where would I rank G.I. Joe Retaliation in this in 1, 2, 3, or there's Cats? And honestly, I think I would rank this 2. I think it's better than Rise of Cobra. Despite them kind of, I would like to see more Joes. But I understand also the thing that's kind of problematic when it comes to these team up movies is like there's just so many personalities, so many named Joe characters, so many named Cobra characters that it's kind of hard to balance a story when you've got a whole bunch of characters like that. It's kind of the same in Rise of Cobra. I mean, they did have quite a bit of character, about a bit of named Joe characters in it that got some screen time. And I guess this is a decent way of dealing with it. I don't know them killing off an entire, like all the Joes. I don't even know how you kill off all the Joes. There was a lot of Joes in Rise of Cobra, and I'm pretty sure they didn't kill off all the Joes in Rise of Cobra. So I don't know. Like, this is still a better movie. Dwayne Johnson, like I said, is always a charming actor. He's always plays a charming character. Shame he never steps out of that role to do anything different. But this is G.I. Joe. He shouldn't have to step out of that role. Just be Roadblock. Just be The Rock. That is actually fine. I am fine with The Rock being The Rock in this movie. I'm fine with The Rock being The Rock in Fast and the Furious movies. I'm fine with The Rock being The Rock in Jungle to Jungle 2. No, Jungle Cruise. Not so fine with Rock being The Rock in Jumanji, though. That was kind of, I mean, I get it. He's a spoilers, but he's a computer program. He's just an avatar. Whatever. It's fine. But yeah, this being a Rock vehicle is fine. I would have liked to see a little bit more out of Joe Colton, but I understand, he's supposed to be retired, so that's fine. I don't know if this is kind of the marker. I mean, this is only 10 years ago. I don't know if this is the marker of when Bruce Willis started doing less and less in roles and just I mean, taking out his sickness and stuff, but he was doing a lot of stuff where people were reading his lines to him off camera. There was a rumor it's like you paid him $1 million to be in a film, he'd just be in your film. It didn't matter, and that might be true back to this one. I would have liked to see Flint do more Flint stuff. I would have liked to see Joe Colton doing a little bit more Joe Colton stuff. Lady J gets to do a lot of Lady J stuff. Snake Eyes gets to do a lot of ninja stuff. Snake Eyes, Storm Shadows, and Jinx totally get to do ninja stuff, and I would rank this 2 just for all the ninja stuff that happens in this film. Just more ninja stuff. That Himalayan scene is chef's kiss. I really enjoy that. I really enjoy the stakes in that. Good job on that. That is my overview of G.I. Joe Retaliation. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Comment wherever you can comment. And please help us grow our channel and grow our podcast. Share it wherever you can share it. Pass it on wherever you can pass it on. If you're able to like and subscribe, depending on what platform you're listening to. And I will see you all again next time.